Extinction is the new Netflix original film that stars Michael Pena as a man who has apocalyptic visions of a future where aliens invade the planet. These visions turn out to come true, and he has to get his family out of this building, all figuring out what's going on with this invasion. So, Nate, before we get into this specific Netflix movie, I think it'd be a compliment to call the Netflix originals a mixed bag.
Yeah.
There are a lot of bad to mediocre ones, and there are a few good ones. You know, like A Stupid and Futile Gesture
that was a good
sticks
one.
out.
Even War Machine was pretty good, too.
Yeah, War Machine was pretty good, too.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of cool with these Netflix original movies. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So, walking into this one, what were your expectations?
My expectations were... I didn't really have any expectations for this one. I didn't watch the trailer or anything. I do like Michael Pena. I do think that Netflix does have the ability to make some good content, but lately it's just been so much content that you're right. You just have to sift through. And since it's so there for you and readily available, I feel like it really sets it aside from theater-going experiences to this. The quality, it's almost... Netflix is turning into the, made-for-DVD movies, to me.
They are, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there are definitely this definitely looks like a Netflix original production as far as the quality. Is it the worst looking movie I've ever seen? No, but there are some scenes where it's really dark and kind of drab. Yeah. And I get there are some dark, drab things going on to this movie, so maybe they're trying to match it. But then the CGI doesn't look terrible.
It's pretty bad in spots, though.
There are some it almost feels like not even a Netflix original movie, but like a sci-fi original movie.
It's exactly what I think too. Even some of the costume designs and things like that, it's just a little on the cheaper side. And I think of that where I was reading about this movie and they intended it to be for a theatrical release, and they gave it to Netflix instead. And I was like, if I went in the theater and saw this movie, I would be upset.
I like Michael Pena as a comedic actor. I don't really buy him as a serious actor. This, and especially in this one, where we'll get into the plot. And so here's a complaint now, and I'll tell you how it's not a complaint later. But
no spoilers.
No spoilers though. But I felt like the acting was kind of wooden and very stoic at parts. But there's an explanation later in the movie that... So when I was watching it, when I was experiencing it live in the moment, I was like, man, this is bad acting. But then when you find out what's going on later in the film, it's like, oh, that was actually kind of good acting.
Yeah.
It kind of played into what was going on with the movie.
Yeah.
So even with some of the complaints I have about the acting... Once you complete the movie, I don't have complaints about the acting. So I did enjoy both Michael Pena and Lizzie Kaplan's performances. And as far as the pacing of this movie, though, I think that it took so long to get to the good part. It took a while for me to get invested in this movie. It really relied on a twist that you get in the third act.
Yeah.
But once that twist happens, I was dialed in. So I just felt like it took too long to get there.
Yep, that's my biggest complaint with this as well, is completely the pacing on the lead up to that twist, which is so humongous for this movie for it to work. And you're right, there's just not enough time with it. And I was getting a little bored. I was getting a little what is this? This just, I don't buy it. But then there's answers. They give you the answers you need to feel satisfied about all the complaints you had earlier in the film.
Right.
But it just I don't know, it almost bothered me that they relied so hard on that. They could have led into it a little bit more entertainment-wise, They could have just dealt with it a little bit better. Just gave us a little bit more, or made us a little bit more intrigued. I wasn't that intrigued. I was like, all right, just get through it. I might have turned this movie off if I wasn't forced to watch it for this review.
This movie really needs me to give a reason to keep going with it. Of course, I was going to finish it for the review regardless, but why would I not trash this movie? And then it finally happens, and it's
it's so weird. We're on the same page with that.
It just cleared the bar for me with that twist where it's all right, cool, finally something's happening. But it took too long to get there.
It took too long to get there, and these are not unfamiliar themes. That was another bother of mine. Once the twist happens, it's cool. It's a cool look at themes that we've seen before. Yeah, but it's been done better before.
Right. The first two acts are built on assumptions, and then it shows you how your assumptions are incorrect. The first 2/3 of this movie, it's is this an action? Is it a thriller? Is it a survival horror?
Yeah.
It's very inconsistent in tone. And I think that goes with the pacing, where it's some of these are quick action scenes, some of these are long dramatic scenes, and it just doesn't flow very well until you get to the third act. And then I think that's when the movie really takes off. So I think if you can make it through the first 45, 50 minutes of this movie, you won't be disappointed. But if that first half you can't get there, you'll probably want to turn it off, and you might you probably should.
Yeah, it's just not intriguing enough for me personally. And honestly, yeah, it picks up and everything, and it starts to move along a little bit more once you discover what's going on. But the action is bland. This is not good action. Even like the technology and the guns that they're fighting with, like Michael Pena's character also doesn't have anything to work with in the action department. Like
No.
in this as a character, you know? So he's kind of just a bumbling oaf, not really knowing what to do. And after seeing something like Mission Impossible, I'm like, this action sucks.
It is. Maybe we should have picked a movie that tried to be an action movie after arguably one of the best action movies probably the last 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And
So,
then this, I'm just like, blah. So, yeah, I mean, but all in all, I think that you're right. There are people that will. This might go down as a movie that forms a little bit of a cult following. You know, like if you do make it, I actually thought I was like maybe rewatching it would be better.
maybe
You know, the second time around might be better after
once you know the
everything.
twist, maybe you can see
Yeah,
the
because there's
hints
some
and a little
narrations.
salty.
There's some like hint. There are tons of hints throughout it. They're just not clear enough, but they would be if you knew what was going on. So maybe it warrants a rewatch. I'm not going to rewatch it, but maybe it does. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. And another complaint I would say I have with this movie, even though I like the themes that they do explore, they're not very subtle in the message delivery. Like, the last 3 lines of this movie are Michael Pena's narration. It's just like hammering, like, this is what we want you to walk away with from this movie. Just, like, they could have
just faded out.
Right, right. So some of these, like, a lot of these things, like, I guess they're either not subtle enough in some things, like with the action and, you know, the delivery of the themes. And then some things are maybe too subtle with, like, little hints that lead up to a twist that, you know, will that push the movie in a way where it's like your expectations are going to be flipped. But that didn't happen.
Exactly. It just wasn't clear enough. This wasn't a clear enough thought out film for it all to work, but it had good ideas.
Buffs. All right, Nate. Well, I think this is the first review ever since we switched the scoring system where it's kind of up in the air if we're going to give it a see it or skip it. So why don't you go ahead and let me know. Do you recommend it?
Yeah, it's hard. This one's a little bit tough. I'm leaning in either direction, but after seeing it and with the problems that are there, I am going to say skip it. I just don't think it's really worth the amount of time it takes for the payoff. What about you?
I think that if this movie were a theatrical release, I would give it a skip it. But because it's a Netflix movie, honestly, it might be something you can throw on in the background. And I really believe that if you can make it through those first 55 minutes of this movie without turning it off, you'll enjoy yourself. Because that was the exact same spot I found myself in last night watching it. So I'm not going to tell you to rush, yes, go see this, but I'm going to say see it. It's a good movie to have in the background, and it's a nice exploration of sci-fi. It had a lot of potential. It didn't quite live up to it, but give it a watch.
Yeah, test your patience.
Buffs. All right, so that's it for our review of Extinction. But we want to know what you guys thought about it. Where does it stand against, you know, other Netflix movies? Is it worth the watch, or should they skip it? Go ahead, leave a comment down below.
Next week we'll be back in the theater to go see The Meg. I mean, the summer's nearing an end here with these blockbusters, so what better way to close it out with this giant shark summer movie?
I want ridiculous action, ridiculous plot. I want cheesy one-liners.
Tons of
I
one-liners.
want stupid 90s action, and I just want a whole bunch of it.
Me too. And we'll bring you that review next week. But wherever you are, whoever you're with,
watch more movies.